What's going on, y'all? Your favorite 69th ranked Marvel Snapper, KM Best, here with much less facial hair, here to talk to you about the newest card in Marvel Snap, Werewolf by Night. Now, Werewolf by Night came out on Tuesday, and it is currently available in the Spotlight caches, which can now be opened with Spotlight keys, or whatever it is they're calling them. And it is a 3-cost, 3-power card that has the text whenever you play, and on reveal, this card moves to that location and gains 2 power. On a baseline level, a lot of people evaluated this card as a little bit not totally that strong, and I think those people were wrong for one very obvious reason. That reason is, of course, Elsa Bloodstone. When this card was first data mined or previewed, it was in a world where Elsa Bloodstone was giving +3 power, and in that context, given that it doesn't work very well with Elsa Bloodstone, I would avoid playing this card a lot of the time. However, now that Elsa has been nerfed, I have gotten to the point where I am cutting Elsa from my decks to fit this guy in, because fundamentally what he's doing is extremely powerful. However, that power comes with legitimate downside. This card is straight up hard to use. You have to be planning out where you want him to be later in the game, and that means not putting 3 units on any location, because then you automatically are telling your opponent, I can't get Werewolf over to that location. Sometimes you have to do that anyway. You do need to win another lane after all. But there is a lot of back and forth when it comes to this guy, no pun intended. Obviously, as a 3-drop, he is one of the strongest there is. Comparing him to Bishop makes this pretty clear. If most of your cards are on reveals, you're going to get a lot more out of Werewolf by Night than you are out of Bishop. And making a deck where most of your cards are on reveals is not really that difficult. You can look at Bounce or Loki to see what that kind of looks like. So, to be clear, this guy is one of the premier stat sticks at 3 cost in the game. And as long as you are looking for a 3-cost stat stick, and this is crucial, you are willing to give up overfilling your lanes, then this guy is a card you're going to be wanting to look at. One of the comparisons that I would like to make for this guy is Silk. Not necessarily in terms of power level, but in terms of being difficult to use and a little bit confusing when it first comes out. So I do expect it to have a similar trajectory to Silk, where maybe a little bit on from now, people are like, oh yeah, this is actually like a really good card in the right metagame. Now, Silk is not a card you have to own. It has been the core of a very good deck before, but that deck has been pushed out of the metagame. It's a very good 2-drop that is good when the deck it goes in is good. As far as Werewolf, it's a little bit more simple stat stick type guy, where when you are in the business of looking for a big 3-cost guy, the question you want to ask yourself is if you're willing to make the sacrifices to get Werewolf into your deck, and if you have to make those sacrifices, how much does it hamper your game plan? So overall, I would say Werewolf by Night, let's just get this out of the way, extremely powerful card, to the point that I do wonder if it might need to be tuned down. That brings me to the, I guess, crux of this video. I talked about this a little bit in my patch review, but one thing I really wanted to get across to you guys was just how difficult it is for me to make a video like this at this point. Because of what just happened to Mobius and Mobius, i.e., the card being released a little bit too strong and then getting completely deleted off the face of the earth, with some degree of intent for that, although I do not know if the deletion was the intent, I do think that there is a bit of a block for someone like me being able to say, yo, I think you should go buy this card. I think you should spend 6,000 tokens on it. I think you should do what you can. That said, this card is a little bit easier to nerf without completely obliterating than a card like Mobius was. So I will say I do feel like you probably are a little bit safer investing in this. I think it's a powerful card. I'm playing a lot of it. But I will also say this card is extremely hard to use. So I want to be clear about that. When you look on websites like Untapped, its win rates are not that good. And I currently chalk that up to, wow, this is really hard to play with. I think that it might be one of not necessarily the highest skill ceilings in the game, but possibly the highest skill floor. Because once you play a couple games with this card, you will understand, oh my God, I don't know how to use this guy. And then you have to figure out how to use this guy and all of the things that I've sort of gone through in this video in terms of like how you have to play with him, what filling up your lanes to 3 means when you play this guy, and how you have to generally use him as a threat on the end of the game to make your opponent unconfident in playing into various locations. So overall, I would say this is an extremely powerful card. He's one of the premier stat sticks at the 3-cost slot, and maybe one of the premier stat sticks in the game. When you have a werewolf on and your opponent does not have a werewolf and you are playing similar decks, you have a massive, massive advantage in that game. I cannot stress that enough. Just having this guy in, let's say, a Loki mirror is a big deal and is likely snappable. That is the kind of card that this is. It is extremely powerful when you have it on curve, and it is very hard to beat when you have it and they don't. That said, it is extremely hard to use. So my recommendation is that I do think this card is likely to end up being worthwhile, but at this point, it's so hard for me to issue a recommendation that anyone spend money in Marvel Snap until we see the resolution of the Mobius situation. And I don't mean that in a, like, you must boycott Marvel Snap kind of way. That's not what I mean at all. What I mean is that it's hard for me as a content creator to recommend that you as a consumer do something or do not do something because I feel as though I don't know if the card is too good, it might get nerfed into oblivion like with Mobius. So for me, my thought process is I would like to see some acknowledgement from Second Dinner that, hey, we overreached on Mobius, we're gonna do something about that. And also, we would like to set the precedent that when we release a card that's too strong, we're gonna nerf it a little bit, but we're gonna try to keep it playable. And when we release a card that's too weak, we're gonna buff it a little bit, but we're not gonna try to make it too strong. And I would like to see some acknowledgement of that before I start issuing recommendations to my followers to go buy Werewolf by Night. But if you are not someone for whom that is like a bothersome thing, yeah, the card is unbelievable. Werewolf by Night is extremely strong, but I did want to just issue this caveat as well, because it's sort of been going around in my head all day. Like, how am I supposed to look at my viewers and say, you should buy Werewolf by Night if there's a decent chance that if it's too good, it'll just get nerfed in a couple of weeks? And I think Mobius is, you look at Mobius, you can see, all right, that's a much harder card to nerf than Werewolf by Night. It is significantly more difficult to do. I wanted to make it a 2-1, but I get why they did what they did. That said, I do think it was a mistake. And I think it was a mistake because of what it conveyed about their priorities. I know there are a lot of people out there who believe that, they're just doing this to sell bundles. Oh, look, the She-Hulk bundle is coming up. And honestly, I'll be completely honest with you, I don't think that's true. I don't think that the level of coordination between the balance team and the bundle team is, that advanced. I don't think it would be possible for it to be true, but I also don't think it's true because I genuinely believe that the way they communicated what they did with Mobius was like, they didn't seem to even really get what the impact of that statement would be. Like, it's not like, it felt very clearly non-malicious in reading it, and it's frustrating to me that when you make a statement like, we released this card a little bit too strong, expecting that we might have to nerf it in the future, but we really wanted to see how this card impacted the metagame. Would you like us to continue doing this? That is a tough statement to make. And I think it's frustrating to me because I think that's actually a very exciting way to do design in a live service game. Because if there were, like, oh my God, this card comes out, it reshapes the meta, that's really, really cool. But then that card gets nerfed. And I think that's a consequence of Marvel Snap's economy system. The economy is the issue here. The fact that these cards are effectively investments for people means that depreciating that investment is tough to deal with. I would like to see some kind of resolution on that for Second Dinner. Buff Mobius, I guess. But I can't believe I'm saying that after my argument with Jeff Hoagland where I thought he should be nerfed, but I think they clearly went too far here. And I think that the people who spent 3,000 tokens on a card that is meant to stop Loki should still get a card that can stop Loki, and he can absolutely do that at different power and energy costs, however they want to do it. I think that effect needs to be in the game. I think the card should have that effect if that's what people purchased it for. And I think that generally Werewolf by Night is a card that is going to have its effect, right? This is a card that's like, all right, okay, oh, it's too strong, we'll make it a 3-1 instead. And then it's like kind of fine. And even then, it's still a very powerful card. It might be a little overtuned now, but I guess my thing is when people ask me what to buy, they ask me what to buy because they want to convert their tokens into wins. And I can only give advice in the current moment. So in the current moment, Werewolf by Night, it's a very powerful card. It is one of the strongest cards that they've released. That is saying a lot. It is better, in my opinion, than current Elsa Bloodstone. If that appeals to you, I would recommend purchasing the card. That said, it is extremely more finicky than current Elsa Bloodstone. One of the things that the old Loki deck really had going for it with Elsa is that kind of every part of the deck wanted to do the same thing. You saw this in how the decks ended up eventually cutting the Collector because it did not want to fill lanes up. It wanted to be on its own. Now, when you play Werewolf, your plan ends up a little bit more disparate. I find that I'm not able to make Werewolf and Elsa work very well together. You kind of very much have to choose one, even if you're playing them in the same deck. And I think that is a good thing. To be clear, a lot of people have been complaining. A new card comes out and it just slots right into the old decks, and it's just like, oh my god, they're putting this in Loki. But I will say, this doesn't really go in Elsa Loki, I think. I think it goes in its own kind of Loki, and frankly, I think if Loki weren't around, this would be a much more interesting card that would have much more interesting applications, but as is, Loki is the mid-range shell that beats the mid-range deck, so that is where I am playing the card. If that changes, you will be the first to know, because I will post a video about it and whatever deck I have that's actually beating Loki. So I do think that Werewolf by Night is an extremely powerful card. I am concerned with the precedent they set with Mobius. I do hope they take further action on Mobius to make it right, whether that be refunds, whether that be buffing the card again. I don't know what it would take, but I do think they need to do something. Let me know in the comments if you ended up purchasing Werewolf by Night, and of course, what you would do if you had 4 caches. I think I also want to reiterate that you should not be opening your caches unless you can guarantee the card. Please, please, please do not gamble. Think of it as use it when you have 4. If you high roll, that's good. If you don't, you deal with it. But remember not to open if you don't have 4. The only way that this system ends up worse than the collector token system, and that we've done a ton of math on this, the only way it ends up worse is if you do that. As long as you only open when you have 4, you will come out ahead. Do not let them get one over on you. Please, please, please do not do that. As far as Werewolf by Night, yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot of this card in the future. It's pretty damn good. I already made the Silk comparison. Silk has been one of the best cards in the game, and I honestly think this card is better. I think it is better than current Elsa Bloodstone, or at least comparable to current Elsa Bloodstone. Extremely powerful, kind of a power crept bishop, big guy. So if I were to rate Werewolf by Night, I would say I would give it a 4 out of 5, maybe even approaching a 5 out of 5, but I won't give it a 5 out of 5. That is reserved for things like Loki, things like Elsa, original Elsa. And I will say, original Elsa, a fair sight stronger than this card. That said, it is ridiculously strong. It is probably worth picking up. And I do hope that if it is eventually changed balance-wise, maybe some good things will happen otherwise, right? Like maybe, again, I don't know what it would take. My 2 ideas are, reinstate Mobius to some facsimile of his previous effect, or, maybe just give people a refund. But either way, I think that I need to see Second Dinner take a step like that before I'm super confident recommending future purchases, is sort of where my head is at. Which sucks because, before like Tuesday, I would have been like, yeah, this is a snap buy. We'll see how that goes. I guess I'm just trying to be honest with you. Like that is kind of where I'm at, where it's like, I need to see them do something to prove that they're not going to leave this thing gutted. I know that, Glenn Jones has made several comments to that effect. He's generally been honest with the community and with me personally, and so I hope that those comments are followed through on. As always, I have been KM Best. Thank you so much for watching. Leave in the comments what you think they should do to rectify this situation, and I will see you in the next one.